3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 29th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, more rumors about next-gen hardware, and is the future of Fallout closer than we think? But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Lex Luddy, everybody. Lexi, how are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, Grubb. Grubb, can you do me a favor and send me your video over Discord too? Because it's really fucking me up not being able to see when
I don't. That's something I never think about. Other people's perspective. That would require me to consider their feelings, and that's just not going to happen. I got to.
You're right. I'm being demanding.
I got a warning. All right, there's two things. One, we're gonna talk about Shogun here in a second. Two, I am yerbed up to the eyeballs. All right, I've been I've been going heavy on the mate, and it's of the many things that me and Lionel Messi have in common. Our love of Sherva mate is near the top. It's near the top. So I'm never gonna forget the moment on the Summer Game Fest couch where I tried it for the first time, and then I'm just like continuing to sip on it. Like, I'm going to be drinking this all night. And Janochoa comes in the room and just takes it away. And he wanted to try it, but mostly he was saving my life. Mostly he was protecting me from myself and just drinking that all night.
Yeah, I'm worried if Jordan brings Buckfast to that show that you will just die. You will not get out.
Everyone's got to die sometime. So, I mean, listen, if that's how I got to go, that's how I got to go.
To live and die in LA, a Jeff Grubb story.
That's right. Let me try something. There we go. All right, I'm setting up some stuff on the Stream Deck as well. Okay,
and I still can't see your video. I think your second camera's disconnected.
Oh, is it broken? Okay. Well, you know what? Then I'll do this. Let's go to OBS Virtual Cam, and this might be distracting as well, but this is what we have to deal with. Is that happening
There
now?
we go.
Okay,
yes,
that's something.
That's good.
Okay, cool. I finished Shogun, and that show was way better than I was thinking it was. They really understood what they were doing. They'd put a bunch of ideas like in the bank, and then they cashed it all in at the very end in just some incredible ways. I mean, the end scenes with Mariko, where she is standing up to the system, was probably one of my favorite things I've ever seen. It was so well done. What do you think of that show?
Yeah, I think Annie, I can't remember her second name now off the top of my head, but the actress for Mariko, she was also in the Monarch Legacy of
I didn't know.
Show. Yeah, she's really good in that too. She's had like a breakout year between those two, and like that. Between those two shows, I think like she's like the next big thing because she is so fucking good in the two of those. We talked about in the pre-show, Yabushi is like just the best dirtbag ever conceived for TV. Just so fucking well characterized, like basically a Yakuza character. And Cosmo Jarvis, along with having a great name, has a very good fake British accent for a New Yorker.
Yeah, I mean, he is definitely doing, I'm not the first person to point this out, he's definitely doing the Democracy Manifest. Like, he's doing that whole thing. And that is a great choice. That was a really smart character move to be like, I'm just going to choose a really strong character portrayal and an accent and just go with that. Because trying to do a subtle British accent wouldn't work. His accent definitely did, though, because it was so much fun.
Did you see, I posted this on Twitter, I came across a DOS game based off of the Shogun books.
No.
And it's like fucking incredible. It looks so fucking cool. It's like pixel art, visual novel style. It looks so fucking cool.
I think I remember a game, like, was it just called Shogun?
Yeah, it was just called Shogun.
I think I remember seeing this game. I didn't realize it was based on the books and probably the miniseries, because the miniseries was very popular, apparently.
If someone in chat can find it, I was tweeting about it like last week or something. It looks really fucking cool. I was like, I should load up DOSBox and try this out.
Yes, that sounds like fun. You know what we should do first, though, is explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with a rumor. There's several rumors actually to kick off today. This first one is Switch 2 said to be fully backward compatible with a larger 1080p screen. This is from Ollie Reynolds at Nintendo Life. Another day, another Switch 2 rumor. Following hot on the heels of a recent report detailing a new magnetic controller setup, the latest information dump comes courtesy of Chinese peripheral manufacturer MobaPad. According to MobaPad's blog post, they just put this up on a blog, so this is kind of weird. The Switch's successor will be a conservative evolution of the current models, more akin to a refined Pro model. As previously rumored, the system's screen will indeed be larger and support 1080p resolutions. Well, the current Switch maxes out at 720p. While the new larger Joy-Con controllers will adopt an electromagnetic suction docking structure controlled by electric current. In addition to the ZL... I
love electric suction.
Yeah, electric suction is definitely the thing I'm searching for in life. In addition, the ZL and the ZR buttons are apparently metallic white. The new controllers will actually include a completely new button on the left side and right side. No further information has been provided to clarify what this button will be called or how it works, but we're certainly intrigued. I wonder if it's like a squeeze. Because I remember had a one of the Pixel phones had like, you hold a phone like a candy bar or whatever, and then you squeeze the sides of it, and that like registered a touch, but it didn't like feel like a button. It was just like kind of like sensing how much force you were putting down. I could see something like that being one of the really tricks they go for.
That'll really make the 1-2 switch cow milking minigame way more immersive.
This is what I'm thinking. Yes. I mean, come on. Nintendo loves that BS. Like, why wouldn't they go for something like that? And then finally, pair that up with the haptics. You're really getting up in that udder. That's the future, I can imagine. Okay, so who knows how accurate this stuff is? A lot of this blog post seems like it's informed by current like parts manufacturers giving information to MobaPad and stuff like that. But who knows how much of that is like them talking to actual partners and how much of it is them like sourcing stuff from other blog posts online or forum posts or something like that. Them trying to get ahead of the curve. And then putting this blog post out there is like, this is definitive when we really don't know that's the case. That said, all this stuff seems pretty reasonable. I'm inclined to believe that most of this stuff is probably happening. The conservative evolution is the thing we're all expecting. That's the least surprising factor, right?
Yeah, I think like a lot of this lines up with what we've been hearing for a while. I'm like hesitant to say anything too much when it comes to a Switch 2, because the last time I did that, like 10 months later, Nintendo are like, we're pulling out of Gamescom.
Yep.
So I feel a little bit responsible for that. But yeah, I don't have any new information that anyone else has. But from going back to what I heard then, they were showing people prototypes of the Switch 2, and that was very much so like software prototypes. It was them showing off what the Switch could do. It wasn't them showing off the functionality and things like that. So it makes sense that those are the things that are now being finalized if this is a 2025 release. They do have to go to manufacture at some point. And like they know this is going to sell out a lot when it first releases, based purely off of how well the Switch sold and how much demand there is for a Switch 2. They know there is going to be a lot of demand very early on for a Switch. So I imagine we're going to get like actual hardware leaks sooner rather than later, because they will just have to go to manufacturing early so that they have enough of a stockpile of these ready.
Yeah, that was another rumor that happened last week, is that the device is going to manufacturing right now. And that was also based on talking to, sources that supply parts and components, things like that. And that wouldn't be too surprising. Part of that report, though, one of the reasons people are skeptical of it is because that report was like, hey, and the system could still come out this year. In fact, that's what they're going for. And every other report recently has been they are moving the launch of this device from this year into 2025, and they don't know exactly when in 2025. So either way, it probably is going to manufacturing, as you're alluding to right now. And so it's going to leak. This stuff's going to get out there. That probably does encourage them to come out and announce what this thing is in some like vague terms here pretty soon, right? If it's going to get out there anyhow. They probably want to control the messaging, or it's Nintendo. What do you think? Maybe they don't care.
I mean, that is what they did last time, where months before we had any idea of what the Switch actually looked like, they were like, hey, we're making a handheld hybrid. Please be excited for. And
look, you can clip it to the back of a chair in a van, in a weird van. I'm like, I think about that video all the time, yeah.
They left it like that for months, and people were making their fucking photoshops of oval-shaped handhelds and things like that. So, like, there's plenty of precedent for them to just say, hey, we're working on it, here's the rough outline. And just so that people stop fucking asking them. Because I think it's kind of becoming a headache for them. Like, it's becoming a noose around their neck when it comes to selling any new game. Is like, hey, okay, but where's the next thing? Like, as soon as Princess Peach came out, it wasn't like, hey, this is a good game or whatever. It's like, hey, when's the next real Mario coming out, and when's the new console? And that's going to happen with any of the releases that they have from now until that next Switch comes out.
Yeah, I think the also the conservative evolution, kind of going back to that, it's not surprising to me, because no matter what, Nintendo's kind of stuck to this TikTok, like, hey, big tick, where like one generation we are going to make a big leap forward, and then the next generation is a talk where it's an evolution of that, and it's not too different. NES to Super Nintendo. NES was very popular. They did it again with Super Nintendo. The Game Boy, very popular. They did it again with Game Boy Advance. DS, very popular. They did it again with 3DS. Even like the GameCube, which didn't sell a ton. They're like, this still works for us. The Wii is going to be an evolution of that based on terms of the hardware. It's two GameCubes duct taped together, if you remember that. So Nintendo has a long history of making a big push with a device, and then the follow-up device is very similar. And I think that history is likely to repeat itself in terms of like what the market's going to be like this time as well. Because like the NES, largely uncontested, right? And then everyone looked around like, hey, they figured it out. Let's just do what they're doing, slightly different. And then you get the competitors like the Genesis. That's happening this time, right? Where the Switch figured it out. Everyone's, hey, we can do that. And now you have the Steam Deck, and you have reports that Sony and Microsoft are also doing handhelds, because everyone's like, hey, we know it can work, and we're going to match that. Do you think that environment sort of guarantees that the Switch 2 can't be as successful as the Switch 1? Or what do you think?
I think that like the Switch 2 is primed to be more successful than the Switch 1, because people are fucking fervent for it. Like, they are rabid for it in a way that we haven't seen since pre-PS2 coming out. Like, people fucking wanting a console to be out right now. And I think that there is, like, even within my casual friends, there is an appetite for a new Nintendo Switch console, because they understand that it would be cool to play bigger games on their handheld device. I think that like purely the idea of, even if it is a marginal upgrade of like, hey, more games run at 60 now, like that, even just being able to say to a normie friend of yours, like, hey, the games run way better now, and they look better now, and that it's still the same console. I think there is a genuine excitement for that among like people who aren't very into video games.
Yeah, I think so. I spent some time with my Switch over the weekend. I also finally fixed my Switch Lite. The thumbsticks both broke in different ways. The right thumbstick wouldn't click in anymore, which was really frustrating. The left one, just the pad like rubbed off, and so it was like this bare plastic, and that was annoying to use as well. The kids were fighting over the Switch, and I'm like, screw it. I have these thumbstick replacement parts that I've had sitting around for forever. And I spent like an hour and a half last night, got it all working. I felt very proud of myself. So who needs a new Switch 2? I could just fix Switch Lites, and that's great. Yeah. Just send them to me.
You should just make your own Switch 2.
Exactly. That's the dream. All right, moving ahead here. Microsoft wants to speed up Fallout 5 development. That's according to another rumor. This is from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. There have been plenty of reports and signs that work on The Elder Scrolls 6 is now in full swing at Bethesda, while they also continue work on Starfield, both in terms of maintenance and new content. In addition, they are in some capacity also working on Fallout 5, where we previously reported that the creators of the Amazon Prime series Fallout were given some advanced information so that the story would not clash with the upcoming game. But when will it be released? Unfortunately, it seems like a very, very long time from now, and Bethesda has repeatedly said that they will launch The Elder Scrolls 6 first, which is likely several years in the future. But now there is a glimmer of hope. After the success of the Fallout series and the surge in interest in the games, Microsoft is now looking to speed up work on the next adventure. And in the latest episode of Xbox 2 Podcast, Windows Central's trusty editor, Jez Corden, hi Jez, says the Xbox team wants to find a solution. They're currently formulating plans on how to get the next Fallout here for us, sooner rather than later. That's what they're talking about from what I understand. A possible solution could be that Obsidian, which previously made Fallout New Vegas, is given the task of creating an intermediate game so that Bethesda can continue working on Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6 before seriously tackling Fallout 5. A solution at least would appreciate, that many fans would appreciate, as Fallout New Vegas is a fan favorite. I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, right, Lexi, where we're like, hey, Fallout 5, it seems forever away. They should figure something else out. They should maybe get Obsidian to do it. Obsidian's also very busy. But they at least it's nice to hear that Microsoft seems aware that this is something that they need to figure out, right?
Yeah, I have to be quite careful here. So I can say that, like, there was the discussion you brought up years ago now, almost, Obsidian were approached about Fallout New Vegas 2. That did happen. I also know that it wasn't just Bethesda being like, hey, we don't want someone else making this game. It was also partly Obsidian going, hey, that would be a huge scale for us that we have backed away from. If you look at this comparison between, New Vegas to the Outer Worlds is a quite more manageable scale for that development team. And so I think there were a lot of people that were very BGS focused of BGS don't want someone else making
right. It was never game. Only that. Yeah.
Yeah, but also there is a part of other companies don't super want to make Fallout games within Microsoft because they have free reign to make their own projects. And why would you work with a partner that we know BGS is quite controlling of Fallout because they're telling the TV showrunners what they can and can't do in their show to a certain extent with the plot. So why would you, as whatever studio, want to work with a BGS who are being quite controlling of this IP when you could work on your own game like Avowed, or you could work on whatever you're working on? Microsoft are looking for people to make another Fallout game. They wanted another Fallout game. They are annoyed that there was not a Fallout game ready to go. And I think pure speculation would be there is probably someone at Microsoft saying, hey, there are a lot of people working at, like, why haven't we scaled up Bethesda to the point that it can be a 2-game studio? If people are that in demand for Bethesda games, why is it that we haven't grown that studio to a size where we could work on a Fallout and a Skyrim successor at the same time? So there is currently no Fallout in development.
No way.
I can say that more or less as a fact. And there is also it is very unlikely that Obsidian are going to be the people to make the next Fallout. And I think that is the quagmire that Microsoft have found themselves in. And they found themselves in this situation with a lot of the companies that they now own, where they bought all of Activision. They bought a shitload of IP with Activision. But Activision is so built around the Call of Duty machine now, they have all these IP and no one to make the games for them. And they have this with a bunch of different IPs and a bunch of different studios where, Phil Spencer will go on stage and he'll wear a Hexen t-shirt and he said, I'd love a new Hexen, but they don't have anyone to make a new Hexen.
Those studios aren't growing on trees, yeah.
So I think that, like, this is the problem Microsoft has, is that on one hand, the developers within Microsoft are very happy that Microsoft gives them the freedom to work on what they want to. On the other hand, there is a genuine bit of confusion of, it is quite strange that they haven't just come in here and told us, no, you're working on this.
Right.
And that hands-off mentality, was reported back with Redfall, of Microsoft weren't very hands-on with that, and then it led to Arcane speculating on what they should be making. I think Microsoft's in a weird spot, because on one hand, it's great that they're giving their studios freedom. On the other hand, the studios sometimes feel like they're operating blindly because they don't have direction from higher up.
Yeah, it's like you wonder, like, when is it in Microsoft's not just best interest, but sort of like they feel like they must pull the reins on some of these studios and say, hey, we need to guide you in this direction because this is going to get the greatest return. We know, maybe not better than you, but as well as we do, that we need to fall out as quickly as possible. So,
and like that has happened with 343, where Halo came out and it didn't perform in the way that it needed to perform, and now the reins very much so have been like they had a big leadership change. They had a big turnover in staff, and that can only really be a sign that Microsoft was saying, like, no, we want a different direction for what you're working on, or a different leadership on heading up what you're working on. So I do think that there is, like, we've been talking about this for years of, like, Microsoft, when are Microsoft going to get their games out? When are they going to, start having all of their games releasing at a consistent cadence? They're starting to hit that consistent cadence, but I don't think they're still happy with the games that they're getting out there from a qualitative point of view. And I think that Phil Spencer having to apologize for Redfall was kind of like a watershed moment for them of, like, I wouldn't be happy if I was apologizing for a game being bad. But also, like, it's on him. He should have been overseeing that game more closely.
He said so. He said so himself. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of maybe Phil or Sarah Bond or whatever, and think about, okay, so Obsidian is looking at the prospect of a Fallout New Vegas 2 equivalent that wouldn't necessarily have to be New Vegas 2, and they're like, that would require too much of a scaling up that we're not prepared for and that we're not really down with. Okay, so then what kind of Fallout project do you think they could get out that would make sense? And, maybe still with Obsidian, maybe not though. Because for me, I'm like, hey, if you have reportedly an Oblivion remake that is going to marry the Bethesda Game Studios engine, creation engine, whatever it's called, with Unreal Engine. So the visuals will be done by Unreal. All the stuff in the background will be done by the traditional Bethesda Game Studios engine. So you're getting that up and ready. Is there like an expand-alone equivalent, like a successor, new content for New Vegas 2 that you could do, or for New Vegas 1 that they could do and put out for like $40? Is that something that could happen with a smaller scale? And you sort of are practicing using those tools to get ready to maybe use them yourself, something along those lines. Do you think that could happen?
I think it's interesting because, like, the conversation around those games was that they were always kind of held together by sellotape and, like, rubber bands, which makes them quite difficult to remake.
Definitely.
Like, it's any project you do going in and working on those isn't a small undertaking, even if it is a smaller scale remake or something like that. Like, that Oblivion remake is probably taking as long as it has because that rumor's been going around for years. Because, like, it is a difficult thing to get working because the creation engine is such a difficult beast, and when you're if they are working with Unreal on it, you suddenly have to get these Unreal developers up to date with your own proprietary engine, and, like, that's difficult. So they're in a really tough spot. The ideal would be, hey, maybe they go make a deal with some Enjoy the Herb. They go make a deal with some, Zaum or someone, and they say, hey, go make a limited experience in the style of Disco Elysium, but in the Fallout universe. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not.
Probably not.
But, like, it is genuinely really staggering. Like, Microsoft owns In Exile, Bethesda Game Studios, and Obsidian. Like, the three companies that are most connected and ingrained with the Fallout franchise and, like, the history of the Fallout franchise and the creative leads behind that. And they can't, for the life of them, figure out a way to get one of these games out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really strange. And I think that it's not going to be a story that is going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that this challenge is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for them to figure out, okay, we're in a bind because we want more Fallout. It is a very difficult prospect to put out there. How can we get creative and get something out there that also feels like it makes a splash, but doesn't take 6-7 years and doesn't cost $200 million? What can we do? Can we figure out a game that fits that narrow set of circumstances? And the answer right now feels like probably not, but I think they should try, because I think a big part of making games make sense for the future is solving problems like this and not just going, well, we just can't make that happen. Fallout is it would be too expensive of an opportunity cost lost if you don't figure out something here. So now's the chance to sort of get creative, get on the ground, talk to the developers, hear out ideas, and try something new.
If we just totally make believe like shit, like creating a game in our head of what we wish they would do, that herb is gone everywhere. I'm willing to bet.
No, that was my headphone stand. Don't worry.
I was really excited.
The herb is over there and safe. We're okay.
Okay. But imagine if like they got someone like Double Fine and Tim Schafer to work on even just like a visual novel or something like that.
Sure.
Just something in their style, in that universe, someone else's take on it. Because I think like I haven't talked about this on any content, but like I really enjoyed the Fallout show as a TV show. And I thought it was really well made. The things that I didn't like about it were that it kind of bummed me out for the direction of the franchise being so BGS focused. And I say that as someone that likes a lot of Fallout 3 and likes a fair amount of Fallout 4. But I think like the way that a lot of the factions, like the Enclave, who are always Black Isle, sort of big bad, are kind of just non-existers.
Yeah. Executive producer Todd Howard probably was going to be like, use my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that gave me a bad vibe of like, oh, it's unlikely that we're going to get to see other creatives work in this universe, and I'd really like to see other people make cool shit in this universe. Because so many cool, like Tim Kaine, Josh Sawyer, all these creatives have touched that franchise in different ways, and they've all had their different spin on it. And I think it would be a shame if it just became a Bethesda property, a singular Bethesda property. Because I think universes like that deserve to have other people come in and do weird shit with them. And there's plenty of room for it in the Fallout universe.
Yep. And I think it's also time to start looking at that, where, Todd Howard is relatively young, going to be making these things for a very long time. Todd needs to get the idea of, letting other people in and starting to expand that, because I think that's only going to benefit these franchises going forward. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, a lot more headlines, including a Game of Thrones video game and Housemarque teasing something maybe to do with Returnal right after this. All right, we are back at it.
I know there's more important news stories, but we have to scroll down. We have to scroll down the list. There's one here near the end involving Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts movie reportedly in the works. This is from Kenneth Shepard at Kotaku. Kingdom Hearts, Square Enix's Disney Final Fantasy crossover, has been around so long it's surprising we haven't gotten some kind of animated series or film before now. Things got close at one point about 20 years ago, and you could find a rough animatic of the pilot featuring the original game's voice talent. But according to the rumors, something on a much bigger scale might be in the works over at Disney, an animated theatrical film. This is a threat. The source of this is Disney's citric outlet, the Diz Insider. A disgusting name. I hate saying that. Site founder Skylar Schuler wrote about the Kingdom Hearts movie in a mailbag post, saying sources has told the site a film adaptation of the crossover RPGs could be heading to theaters in the future. Yeah, okay. This is one of those I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it sort of thing. But I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going to give my polite analysis first, which is I'm willing to bet that whatever deal they have is that this isn't going to be a retelling of like the first game. It's going to be a continuation, and it's going to be fucking baffling for anyone who hasn't been playing the games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really going to be just totally impenetrable. My less nice analyzing of this comes up with so Mike Minardi, okay? We need to talk about Mike.
Do we have to?
Yes, we need to talk about Mike. People are fucking out there on Twitter talking about meeting their friends at Summer Games Fest. I'm fucking out here ready to meet my fucking nemesis, because that man-child is out there fucking acting like Kingdom Hearts is a is a good video game, and it's not. It's just not. And he also
There's nothing to be done at this point. There's nothing to be done. We can't stop him.
Mike Minardi is the Sora of video games journalists, and I mean that in the worst way possible.
Parentheses negative. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll go see this movie. I have a movie pass thing, so like I can go see any movie for like €15 a month now. Why not?
That sounds like a good deal. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. Wouldn't be surprised if it's just something that pops up on Disney Plus. Wouldn't be surprised if it just did turn into an animated series instead. We'll see. This is something,
and it will only be playable through mobile phones on Apple Arcade when the moon is in twilight. And there's a solar eclipse. Those are the only times you can play it.
I gotta say, like, as someone who like has only played Kingdom Hearts 1 and really disliked that, the idea of a movie doesn't like upset me all that much, because it's like, okay, yeah, I think the characters are fine. The like,
seems like a format.
Yeah, it seems kind of like a better format. Seems like it could be fun, even if it is incoherent. I think if it's like a fun adventure, I'm like totally down.
All of Disney's back catalog. Like, if you just do that, then I can see people liking it. Like, yeah, sure, why not?
We'll see. We'll see what happens with this complete mess. All right.
Anyway, they should make a movie about the bouncer.
Yeah, the bouncer should just be in there. Should be part of this Kingdom Hearts universe. All right, another rumor. The finals developer Embark is making a Game of Thrones title. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. Swedish developer Embark Studios is, of course, best known for last year's hit, The Finals, but we also know that they have the action title Arc Raiders in development. But perhaps they are now so big that they have more teams developing games. According to rumors from Redanian Intelligence, the developer has joined forces with Korean publisher Nexon to release an online role-playing game based on Game of Thrones. According to the source, the game will be set between seasons 4 and 5 of the television show, with the Wall and Winterfell being the main areas we will visit, at least initially. Other than that, details are scarce, but the setup will apparently be reminiscent of Diablo Immortal. A weird reference point. This is the first time we have heard anything about this, and if the information is correct, it is likely to be a huge project. Of course, rumor, nothing guaranteed here. It could be conversations, could be something more. Embark is a pretty big studio already. I
just looked at the latest, the last time they reported how many people they have employed. It's at 282.
282. I think they had a handful of layoffs when everyone else was laying stuff off, so it's probably still around 250 in that range. They do have Arc Raiders coming out still. That was their first game they announced. They put out the finals. They're running that. But I think, like, making deals with publishers like Nexon is the kind of thing, which I thought Embark did get acquired by somebody, but maybe I'm misremembering that. I can't remember exactly.
No, I think they just got funding. I think they just got funding from someone to do Arc Raiders.
Okay, that sounds right. Let me ask you then, Lexi. Is Game of Thrones something that you are excited to explore in a video game?
So it's weird. I went out this morning for a cup of coffee, and I went to like my local bakery. And I know the person that works there, and she mentioned that she had been watching Game of Thrones and that she had just caught up with the final of the original series. And even now, all these years later, she was like, "That was really bad."
It just straight up is bad.
Yeah, she was like, I talked to her about it like a couple of weeks ago before she watched the final episode, and she was like, "I'm so excited to see where it goes." And then today she was like, "I was really bummed out." And I think House of the Dragon is doing some bit to like improve sentiment towards that series, just because that show is like competently made, and seems pretty good. They also definitely are scaling up production on other spin-offs because they're working on a second spin-off TV show, which actually they just cast the main actors in that, and one of them used to be a rugby player for Connacht, which is weird.
Oh
wow. So they are definitely like trying to keep the Game of Thrones IP alive. So it would make sense that they'd try video games again. But this hasn't gone great the two times that they did it previously. They did action.
I didn't hate the Telltale game. The Telltale game I thought was pretty okay.
Game it's grand. It just sold really poorly as far as I know.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to. That was when people were the most oversaturated with Telltale stuff, I think. That and the Guardians of the Galaxy games really underperformed for them. And so yeah, I think like there is room for it, but also I just don't know if a Diablo style action RPG is like what I want to do in that universe. Like,
yeah, I could see being like on the wall and doing raids out into the the north, into the wilds out there. That's an idea, and I could see Diablo being a good fit for that. I
think my thing is, I don't know. Game of Thrones is, it's a character-driven thing. Like, it is the characters, whereas something like, I don't know, Star Wars or something is a symbol-driven thing. Like, it makes sense that you can make a loot game around Star Wars because a lightsaber is a really fucking cool thing to get. Game of Thrones, like, I don't know, it's just a fucking sword.
Yep.
Like, there aren't really that many objects in that universe that are... It doesn't feel like a loot game if you were adapting it. So I'm curious to see how they approach it if they do this. But yeah, like, I'd be interested to see this at least.
Yeah, I think I'd be more excited if they were just like, yeah, I mean, Diablo, but really we're going to just make a gauntlet. Just make an arcadey action RPG game where your characters, yeah, they level up, but it's not like a loot game. It's more just like they are going to be what they are. Like, you're going to have an archer. You're going to have someone that kind of does like a faux magic. Obviously, there's not like explicit, sparks flying out of wands magic in Game of Thrones, but there's still some magic in there that you can maybe make work in a game like this. But hey, they're going to go for this. Obviously, if you're going to make a big game based on a big franchise, it's got to be, and it's something that you want it to be a live service game or, MMO adjacent. You got to make it something that can last. And I see Diablo Immortal as something that's like, yeah, that's a good fit, I suppose, for trying to make something based on Game of Thrones that can last. Maybe. I'm just personally not that interested in it, Lexi. So we'll see. Housemarque teases a new announcement ahead of Returnal's 3rd anniversary. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC.
Chat, I need you to know that this news story has the shortest amount written for it by Grubb, so I think his anti-Returnal bias is showing, and you should all give him shit for it.
This is all on Chris Scullion. This is all Chris had to write about it. Housemarque is teasing that it will make an announcement on Tuesday. The developer has posted an image on Twitter showing a person's eyes reflected on a piece of shattered glass. The image simply says, tomorrow, implying more information will be revealed on Tuesday. Tuesday also marks the 3rd anniversary of Housemarque's last game, Returnal, which was released on April 30th, 2021. Returnal, good game.
And they did, they did that co-op DLC, which is really, really interesting. I actually really, really liked Returnal. I never finished it, but I think one of the best things to come out of it was the Jacob Geller video on Returnal and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. It's really fucking good if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, Jacob's great.
And so, yeah, I think that everyone was kind of taken aback that studio had really good storytelling chops. And I'm curious whatever they do next, whether it is more Returnal, whether it's DLC, I'll check it out because I think that Housemarque make games like nobody else do in the Sony portfolio.
Oh, yeah.
They're worth supporting.
Do you think that the most likely thing here is more Returnal content or Returnal sequel? What do you think is going to happen here on Tuesday?
The image that was floating around looks a bit like
Celine's eyes.
Main character, Celine's face. So I can imagine that game also. It's not that it couldn't have a sequel. It's that like it's kind of just meant to never end.
Right.
Especially from a narrative point of view. And so I'd be curious to see what direction they would take it in. I think Celine is a really cool protagonist just as a concept, like a middle-aged woman is something you don't see, and she's depicted really fucking well in that game.
Yeah.
And I think that the problems that people like you had with Returnal's gameplay are things that could definitely be addressed in a follow-up or a DLC. And that studio has showed through their years of like top-down shooters and arcade-style games that they're really good at iteration and improving game on game. So I definitely think there's like a lot of room for them to do something more with that style of third-person bullet hell. So yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I think I would welcome a sequel. That's because I think what my issue was, I know my issue was that I had just played Hades, and so I'm going into this other roguelite, and every run felt so similar that everything started to feel very routine. I knew what to expect, and I knew how the character was going to play, because even if you got a different weapon, basically your loop was always the same. And I think in a world where every developer has now played Hades and knows they can't ignore that way of doing things with roguelites in terms of every run could feel very different if you lean into that. My expectation is that they find ways to really expand on this idea in a sequel. And that's my hope. I hope that they announce a Returnal 2 tomorrow. It's ready to go pretty quickly. I think that'd be a great drop for this year. Obviously, it's pretty quick. Like that 3 years. That's probably not enough time to actually get one of these out, but I'm being very hopeful here. And I think that would be exciting. I bet Returnal 2 blows me away in a way that Returnal 1 was like, this is a good game, but they are missing some key elements that I think are now kind of table stakes for this genre. I think this time around, they would nail that stuff, especially for a studio that does have such a strong history making arcade-based titles.
And I think like you've seen this a lot in the roguelike genre has changed quite a bit post Hades. So I think like a studio like Housemarque learning from Hades and looking at what worked in that and what they could apply to it would be really, really cool.
Yep.
Because they definitely seem like a team that would pay attention to the things that really worked in games like Hades in recent years and Dead Cells and go, how can we adapt this in a way that like really makes our games stand out?
All right, let's move along here. Escape from Tarkov devs Flail after putting PvE behind $250 paywall. This is from John Walker at Kotaku. Multiplayer tactical shooter Escape from Tarkov caused much upset in its passionate community last week when it announced it would be adding PvE to the game, but only for those who spent an astonishing $250 on a new bundle, the Unheard Edition. This was made even worse after those who'd previously bought the Edge of Darkness edition had been told all future DLC would be theirs for free. Making a video game is so much more complicated today than it's ever been. Back in the day, you made a game, put the game in a box, then people bought the box and played the game. That was the extent of the developer's connection with the players. Now things are such an extreme opposite that every tweak and change is subject to the court of unpopular opinion. Most usually because said developers charging extra for those tweaks and changes. None more dramatically than Battlestate Games' recent announcement that it would be charging for PvE in their hit game. Escape from Tarkov has been in so-called early access since its release in 2017. The developers, Battlestate, looking for fresh income streams to keep the project going over the intervening 7 years. One such wheeze was the now delisted Edge of Darkness that charged $100 for what was described as a season pass, which would provide all future DLC at no extra cost. So it was perhaps not an enormous surprise that customers really kicked off when they learned that not only would they not be getting a forthcoming PvE update, but that it would cost 2.5 times more than the Edge of Darkness to be able to play it. This has led to a lot of outrage, Lexi, among fans of the community, and Battlestate has begun the backpedaling process and began sort of like almost negotiating with the community, being like, okay, what if we did this instead? What if we did this? And they have now settled on anyone who did have that Edge of Darkness season pass will now be getting access to the PvE mode, but it will be something that happens slowly over time because the servers aren't ready for it or something like that. This was a real mess. Do you think that this permanently damages the trust that a developer like Battlestate had built up?
Yeah, I think I saw someone on Twitter being like that, that Battlestate are one of those developers who have built up goodwill for 7 years and have managed to decimate almost all of it
That's what it feels like.
Update. This is like, as someone who hasn't played Tarkov because I'm not fucking downloading their proprietary launcher shit, I just don't trust it. This seems like an overstep in a really dramatic fashion, and a mass misunderstanding of just how much the community will abide.
Right. It's trying to get away with as much as possible, and they got too big in their britches, right?
Yeah. And I think when nowadays when I play a online game, I very much so am one of those people who I'm like, I have no intention of buying any of the DLC or the cosmetics unless I really like this game. I think the only game I've done that for in the last 7 years is Helldivers. That was the first time I was like, actually, I'll upgrade to the version that has like the season pass because I'm really enjoying this. And I think that a lot of people play their games like that now, where they're like, listen, unless I'm really enjoying it or it's Fortnite, I'm not going to invest extra money into this. And then they count on, their whales or whatever to keep the revenue coming out of those games. And in this case, what they were like, a lot of people could probably be like, yeah, I'll still play Tarkov without the season pass because I'm still getting the Tarkov experience. I'm still getting what I want out of it. But then they ask for so much money for something that feels like it's part of the main experience, that feels like it's going to be the community focus, it's going to be part of the community zeitgeist, that it just becomes unacceptable not to own it. And charging $250 for something like that is out of their gourd insane.
Yeah, it's a big number.
Yeah, it's a big number to say to people in one go. Like, I know plenty of people who have paid more than $250 into Sims DLC or into World of Warcraft subscriptions.
Yeah.
But that is over time. It's not one lump sum. And I think that this is just a real misunderstanding of how much someone is willing to pay, how much money someone's willing to part with in one go. Because it's a lot of fucking money. It just straight up is a lot of money for a piece of entertainment.
Yeah. And I think this is the kind of thing where like they were trying to, like we as we just said, trying to get away with what they can get away with. They miscalculated clearly. They tried to justify it saying, well, this isn't DLC. This is whole new content. This doesn't count as DLC. Again, it's weird that they wouldn't be able to predict that fans would react this way, because the Tarkov community is very vocal and very, like as John Walker describes it here, feisty. And it's like, well, so clearly you knew they were probably going to be, or I believe you knew there would be some reaction here. And maybe you just thought people wouldn't care and you would just be able to monetize those whales that always show up. Either way, just seems like a real bad miscalculation. And, you could say, well, if you're so upset about it, go ask for a refund from this game. And as our rules in chat pointed out, this is something that the developer sells it through their own website. So you don't have the guarantee of a support community from something like Steam being like, hey, yeah, go come and get your refund or whatever. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, especially since the studio seems like they are strapped for cash. I suppose that's what it seems like this implies, but I don't know. I think probably in a couple years, as long as the studio has learned a lesson here, they do come back, and this is remembered as an unfortunate speed bump. But this can be the kind of thing that does sink a game if they don't address it, right?
Yeah, we've seen it with like plenty of... We saw it with Destiny, where they had a couple of bad updates, and suddenly their player numbers were in a really poor spot, and it is so hard to get people to come back. It is so hard to get people to return to a game that they have left, especially complex games that change a lot. Fortnite's the only one that really can do it, because a lot of that game is so streamlined and intuitive that it's not that difficult to leave for 6 months and come back. But almost every other live game where systems change, where mechanics change, where story evolves, whatever, it's really hard to get people to come back once they've left. And I think that's like going to be a challenge if they don't remedy this in a way that the community finds acceptable. And that's not saying that like the community are right in whatever they demand, because we all know that like communities can be wrong when they demand shit. But like there's totally a situation where they lose a large chunk of their player base, and they struggle to get them to come back.
Yep. I am honestly, this makes me more curious to check out Tarkov, which is a sick problem that I have, where I'm like, there's controversy, time to go hop in and see for myself. But we'll see. All right, WWE 2K24 modder has been unbanned after fan backlash. This is from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. Just a quick one here. What the Status is one of the more well-known WWE 2K modders out there, and while he's known for a wide variety of mods and finding inaccessible content for players, one of the creator's most popular works was allowing female wrestlers to compete against their male counterparts in WWE 2K24. What the Status, it was banned from the game, and all the mods were taken down. And now the studio has reversed that decision after like the huge backlash. And after talking to What the Status wrote on Twitter, WWE Games and I have met on on how my mods can impact the game. We've come to an agreement, and a fair one at that. Thank you guys for the support, and thanks to all of you, my ban has been lifted. I am free. So the modder's returning. It seems like they talked it out. Probably would have been a good idea to talk it out in the first place, right? I think that's what the lesson to be learned here, where, hey, you have a community creator who has a lot of stuff they put in the game using your official tools. One of the big reasons people buy these wrestling games is to mess around with those user-generated pieces of content. And just doing a unilateral ban is your right, of course, but when it's an expectation of the game, probably something you should maybe figure out before you do something as drastic as that. Maybe talk to the person first. Again, it's their right. I don't know. What do you think?
Being super trigger happy isn't something I'd associate with the WWE Grubb. So,
no, never. Of course not.
Yeah. And it is interesting that they're like, oh yeah, I was talking with WWE Games, not, Ukes or whoever makes them now. Who is it again?
Oh God, it's the team that makes the NBA 2K. Not Vicarious Visions. I can't remember. Visual Designs, something like that. Yeah.
Visual Concept.
Visual Concept. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like it's very much so like we are discussing it with WWE. We are not discussing this with the people who make the games. We're discussing it with the people who make the legal decisions. It's kind of like what you said about Nintendo of America last week, where this wasn't a conversation with game developers or anything, or this wasn't game developers taking down mods or something. This was lawyers being like, they're doing what?
Yeah.
And I think that, WWE is probably in a weird spot at the moment where they're very sensitive to anything. As an outsider looking in, who is not in that community, but they are probably quite sensitive to the idea of having a situation where a male wrestler could hit a female wrestler, with good reason at the moment. But I also think that, like, what the model was doing of letting there being cross-gender matches is quite cool and is a novel idea and is good for the community.
And it's pretty standard in games. I mean, Street Fighter forever has been doing it, and no one's really thought twice about it.
And I'm willing to assume it is probably just that it's a conflux of real-life stories making this making these downloadable characters have a very different tone to them at the moment, and that's super unfortunate because, like, that's not this guy's fault. It's the shitbags who were shitbags at WWE. So yeah, I kind of feel bad for him that he got screwed in this situation, but it's, as someone who isn't in the WWE, it seems kind of shocking that they reinstated him, that, like, there was a conversation even had. That doesn't seem like, from the little bits that I've picked up mainly through Giant Bomb podcasts over the years, that doesn't seem like something that would have happened even 3 years ago, of them talking with a community member and being like, okay, well, we see that you're important to our brand in some way.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess it's a sign of the times for the WWE as a entity that they can even, that they are even willing to interact with community members to that level anymore.
Yep. It's the kind of thing where I think that they didn't predict the backlash, and it's I think now they know better, and in the future they'll be able that this is the tack they'll take in the future, probably. All right. Let's get to the poll question. I'm going to bring that up right now. Do you still use the same do you still want to use the same Joy-Cons on the next Switch? The results for that are in, and they are yes, says 19% of respondents. 81% said no, thank you. I do not want to use the same Joy-Cons. Please redesign them or do something new. And I think that's pretty fair. I think you get 1 in 5 people being like, I have a ton of Joy-Cons. I want to keep using those. And then everyone else being like, I kind of don't like those things or wouldn't mind something new, especially since when you get a new system, you kind of want things to be shiny and different to make it feel like it was worth spending that extra money on, right?
Yeah, I think, like, no matter what, they'll have a new iteration of the Joy-Cons because they know that it's important that when you sit down, you hold a different controller in your hand, because that's what next gen feels like, is a new feeling controller in your hand. And so, yeah, I can't imagine a world where they don't redesign the shape to some extent, or the feel at least.
All right. I got a new poll question. We'll bring that up here in a second. But before I do that, Lexi, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, and all of that good stuff?
Yes, so you can find the website that I run, Start Menu, at startmenu.co.uk. We're currently in the process of reworking some stuff. I'm looking at the website going forward now that I'm out of college, and how to best facilitate helping people break into games journalism now that I've been doing it for 5 years. So watch this space. You can contact us at hello@startmenu.co.uk if you want to get in and start writing about video games and get into games journalism in general. I will be at Summer Games Fest. I will be attending the show representing Play Magazine, the PlayStation magazine in the UK and Europe. And so if you're a PR person showing something for PlayStation, hit me up. I'll be helping those guys out. I will be at Gamescom in August, and I'll be at that as a freelancer. I will be at a thing in Europe in May, which I can't talk about, but I'm excited for. And I will hopefully be on the Giant Bomb couch at some point so that someone can finally take it to this fucking Mitch Tolkoto.
Yeah. Put him his
Apple's
place.
Minority Joker. Mug him and steal all of his $800 or whatever he's carrying around on him
That's
that day.
not nearly high enough. It's way higher than that. He's got way more money on him. That sounds good. We'll definitely make that happen. I got a lot of work to do to get all that ready, but we are in the process of making that happen right now. All right, new poll question. Are you interested in a Game of Thrones game? Yes or no? We'll get that up. We'll discuss it on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb on Wednesday. Speaking of Giant Bomb, tomorrow, Tuesday, Giant Bombcast returns. Look out for that. That's going to be a great episode. And then for the rest of the week, we'll have your normal entries. I believe I am starting a Blight Club game on Wednesday. It's my turn. Son of a bitch.
I have, Reddit, the Giant Bomb Reddit have come to the conclusion of what game you will be playing. There's a pretty strong consensus.
I think,
and if it is that,
I think they're wrong. I hope they're wrong because they think it's going to be Daikatana. And I don't think Mike would have given up Dan Katana and or Mike Manai's going to make you his Mitch. Those are too good. So,
but also it would be kind of incredibly funny if they did give both of those up just to fuck with you. And like, I also hope this isn't true because I'll be living in Galway for like another 2 weeks, and John Romero lives around here, and I don't want to get roped into this shit. I don't want to.
Yeah, I might have to have you, be an emissary. We'll see.
Yeah, stand outside of the Romero Games office and be like, "Hey, do you want to talk about this game you hate talking about?"
Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll find out. There's plenty more happening on Giant Bomb later this week. In the meantime, I hope everyone's doing well. Do you see that? Are you surprised at all that Stellar Blade came out and then the Chuds weren't happy? They still found something to be reactionary about, as if it doesn't matter. Oh, what's happening? They just need something to feed their anger. That doesn't sound like them. I think there's something off here. Something bad has happened. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Lexi, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm off to go play Nier Replicant, a game that has no sexualization in it of any kind.
Of course not. Just fishing, like every good game.
Yeah.
And then
fishing in that game is terrible.
Yeah. And thank you everybody for watching. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself and goodbye.